Hey y'all, happy Thursday. Welcome to another What Else is Going On, aka We Go podcast episode. I'm your girl, your host, Taria. We are getting ready to get into the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, season 6. Really, it's episode 7, but on Peacock, it's listed as episode 11 because of the Watch What Happens Live. Episodes. I noticed they stopped doing it, 2 weeks ago? It looks like they were doing it all the way up until episode after episode 5 in quotes. They did a Watch What Happens Live. Then they did episodes. Wait, no, actually, the 2 weeks ago, it looks like they stopped doing it. So I'm just gonna go with 11 because, child, that's what it say on Peacock. But anyway, welcome. I'm tired, but we are going to get into this and get through it because that episode of Salt Lake City was so good. Y'all have to tell me how y'all thought it was. I enjoyed Sunday's episode of Potomac, right? And I remember asking y'all, I didn't know if I enjoyed it like because it wasn't as dark as previous episodes or if I really enjoyed it because there was a lot of dime dropping. I'm gonna reveal this about you. Oh, I'm gonna reveal this about you. I'm gonna reveal this about you. With Salt Lake, it's like they have some of that, but it's just something else with that cast that makes me truly look forward to and enjoy the episode. And I know that I'm not enjoying it just because previous seasons may have been a little heavier. I'm actually truly enjoying the show, but y'all let me know what y'all think. Let's get into it. So the episode starts with basically a foreshadowing of what's to come on the boat. We hear the ladies arguing, glass is breaking. So the ladies are arriving at the airport. They're leaving at night. Whitney lets some of the ladies know she got a text from Brownwin that says sorry. That says hi, sorry for the late notice. I'm not going to make my flight. Have a safe trip. I'm coming I'm coming still. Just going to meet you guys and y'all, where are they going? Are they the ones going Kanawha, right? Child, my voice to text picked it up as Canaan. That's in the Bible, right? I don't know. Somebody's name, child. Anyway, she said, I'll meet you guys in Kanawha to get on the boat. Can't wait to see you all. So in her confessional, Whitney says she's not surprised that Bronwyn was running late, and she won't be surprised if Bronwyn came at all because we know what the headlines have been saying about Bronwyn: felon, car thief, all of this other stuff. So Whitney says, I don't blame her if she doesn't come, but we're going to talk about her if she's there, or if we're going to talk about it, whether she's there or not. I said, shout out to Whitney for being true to herself. I don't know what's going on in the last 2 seasons that made me, I couldn't, I was going to say never, but I'll never say never. I can't, in good conscience or good faith, use the word like, but I don't feel like fast forwarding her scenes like I did every other season before last season. And she makes a little sense sometimes. So, but I like how she said, we're going to talk about it whether she's there or not. So, which is interesting because I have some thoughts about something that Bronwyn says later to Lisa, which we'll refer back to with this. So the ladies, are there. They greet the below deck crew, Captain Jason, and he welcomes them for coming. Heather says she met Captain Jason when she was on a trip to Australia with Whitney. They hung out for a week. So they show a flashback of Heather FaceTiming him saying, I want to bring the girls on your yacht. You're more my captain than their captain. In her confessional, the producer asked Heather if she were stuck on an island with Captain Jason, what would she bring? Heather said a bikini and condoms. I said, well, I know that's right. Okay, Heather. So Lisa tells the guest she'll probably be the lowest maintenance guest. Girl, you wanted to bring glam. But who knows? Maybe that might not mean anything, right? So Angie's hugging everyone, telling, just touching their faces. And Lisa says she needs attention, girl. So Captain Jason tells the ladies that he's going to get them wet and then get them in the water. And they were like, that's backwards. I have a feeling he had already did the first part with some of them ladies, Brittany. Anyway, so Angie tells them, listen, you're never going to work so hard for money in your life. In her confessional, Lisa says, every chance to get on the yacht, she's all for it. But this will be nice for Angie because normally she's in an RV. Have I ever seen it for Lisa? Never. Did I think this was funny? Yes. But she knows how to make something awkward, doesn't she? She makes the joke, and then of course it's quiet. It's their confessional, even though there's a producer there, and she's like almost going into that blinking thing that she does. But I thought that was funny because she arrived. But the season started off with them going on a cash trip with Angie driving an RV. In her confessional, Angie said she's never been on a yacht in her life. But when she sees Lisa, her good energy goes down. She's planning on just keeping her distance. She ain't gonna be near Lisa, but maybe she can stand next to her to make her ankles look smaller. I said, no, what? Angie, are you saying that Lisa has cankles? Like, girl. Anyway, so they're having a drink of champagne. And Lisa says or either a drink of champagne or they're doing margarita shots or something. And Lisa says to them, to the crew, after this, I'll only do my tequila and I'll make sure you have it. So the deck crew is looking at all the luggage these ladies have, and they have a lot of luggage. In her confessional, Brittany says she's in a smorgasbord of heaven looking at all these crew guys. We're going to talk about later how you're supposed to be doing 30 days, not just from Jared, from men, period. And I'm going to keep saying it. So Heather wants to know about Bronwyn, or Whitney. One of them wants to know about Bronwyn, like if she doesn't make the boat. And Daisy said she'll organize for Bronwyn to get to them if she misses them. So the stew gives them a tour of the boat. And here are the assignments. Meredith and Lisa. Lisa says she wants to sleep with she needs a bathtub, and I want to sleep with my sister. So Meredith and Lisa, Bronwyn and Brittany, Heather and Whitney, Angie and Mary. So it's funny when Brittany finds out she's sharing a room with Bronwyn. I said, as soon as we found out, I couldn't wait to see Bronwyn's reaction because putting them together, just when I thought Heather might be liking Bronwyn a little bit, no, she don't like her. She don't like her. But of course, when you think about who else would she put her with, she could have put her with Mary, but Angie and Mary are cool. So she could have put her with Whitney, but she gonna be with Whitney. She wasn't gonna put her with Lisa or Meredith. So that's who you got to be with. So Heather tells Brittany, listen, you'll do great. You're a trooper. It's fine. She might not even show. So then we see the chef, Chef Ben. And I remember I had Kate Chastain on my podcast twice. It's where she dropped all that information about Portia before a lot of it even really came out. If y'all have it, you can check out that old episode. It was in like 2020 or 2021. Anyway, I'm pretty sure it wasn't a fever dream, but as I was talking to Kate, I think Chef Ben was there and he hopped on for a few minutes. I know I'm not dreaming that child. I said, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to my own episode. Remember, she was on twice, but I'm pretty sure Chef Ben had got on for a few minutes. But anyway, but that was before I was posting my recordings. I would just do the recordings just so I could see the person face to face, but I was only doing the podcast at the time. So the ladies go to the top of the boat. Heather says, listen to me for a second. Whitney and I are actually friends with Captain Jason. Lisa said, where is Captain Jason? They say he's driving the boat. Heather said, he doesn't know we're totally crazy. Here go Brittany. I'm a sucker for the leader of the ship. Heather says, so you and him kind of. She said, look, if he's into me, then I'll be into him. Is that how that works with your men? Or with men in general? If they show you the slightest bit of attention, then you're into them? Okay. In her confessional, Heather said, I admire Brittany's fervor for the opposite sex. So Brittany says she's not the type to overly flirt. He needs to flirt with her. I said, girl, please. Again, what about a 30-day break? It's not a 30-day break just from Jared. It's from men. You can't do 30 days. And if it's about the sex, you don't got something that you ain't got a rose or something where you don't need a man. You can't go 30 days. Girl, come on. Anyway, so all the ladies sit down at the table, Meredith said, so look, if you want to go to Brittany, if you want to go for Captain Jason, it's all good, but we don't want to hear one word about Jared. So Whitney said, if you say Jared's name on the ship, we're going to splash you with water. She says it 3 times, Jared, Jared, Jared. Meredith and Whitney hit her with the water. Bronwyn arrives and this, in a costume / fashion, because she says that herself, right? So she's coming over on the boat, on the little boat to bring her to the big boat. So before she gets there, Heather's telling the other ladies, look, we want to make Bronwyn feel welcome. We'll find out the details later. Forget about that. Just let her feel welcome. In her confessional, Bronwyn says she doesn't know what she's walking into. She's sure the ladies have seen the headlines and they discussed it. And then she has Todd's voice in the back of her head, and they showed the flashback of him saying, I don't think you should go. So Lisa says she always wears a costume. I've seen the look before on Instagram. Who cares if she wore her outfit more than once? Who cares? Okay. And so Lisa says, I think to Angie, for me, I feel like she's got a lot on her plate, especially. And Angie says, why are you saying it like that? What do you know? Angie brings up the stuff that they saw, online. And Lisa says, we all saw it because it was online, right? We all saw it. I said, so Lisa, now can you understand how they all saw your stuff in the Salt Lake Tribune? I don't think any one of those ladies went to the Salt Lake Tribune. Probably a reporter from the courthouse or somewhere for it to land in the Salt Lake Tribune before it landed in blogs. So now can you see how they all saw what was already out there from a reputable, not saying bloggers aren't reputable, but from a reputable news source, the Salt Lake Tribune? Anyway, in her confessional, Lisa says she doesn't like to throw around the word karma, but she basically implies that this is Bronwyn's karma for talking about her stuff. And I say it was in the newspaper. So Lisa says, why would she come for me when she's got stuff? And I said, some of her stuff is older than yours, and your stuff is currently active. It's actively going on. It's not in the past. And I do think that is a difference, whether it's Lisa, Bronwyn, Heather, Brittany, Meredith, Whitney, whomever, Mary, Angie. It's current stuff that's actively happening, that there's an active case against Lisa while we're filming. Yeah, we're going to talk about it. I guess she could say, well, Bronwyn's old stuff somehow came up while we were filming, so we're going to talk about it. I just feel like there could be a little bit of a difference, but y'all let me know what y'all think. So they all comment on on Bronwyn's outfit. Whitney says, is this fashion or costume? Bronwyn says it's a little bit of both. So Bronwyn says, I didn't really want a full entrance like all of this, but you did. Coming in like this, posing, you did. Lisa said, well, you got an entrance. And I agree with Lisa, like you did. Brittany put her arm around Bronwyn and says, I can't believe we're literally sleeping in the same bed. Bronwyn said, excuse me, my name is Bronwyn, not Jared. We're not sleeping in the same bed. The ladies pour water on Brittany. They heard the name Jared. I feel like they know she ain't say it, but they did it anyway. So the ladies are getting their luggage. And Whitney tells one of the crew, look, these are my valuables. Take good care of them. Also, if you see a nipple cover, she needs it. So over the radios, they say, all crew, a guest has lost her nipple cover. Please let me know if you find it. In the meantime, Angie is already starting to get seasick. Mary says she doesn't get seasick at all. Brittany brings out a unicorn, honey, with Jared's voice saying, good night, baby. You are loved. At what point did Brittany stop maturing? What age was it? Was it 15, 16, 14? Because she behaves like, but then there are times when she seems lucid and like an adult. Bronwyn says, I'm throwing that overboard. So one of the crew finds a cucumber, and it looks like it was in I thought it was in Whitney's bag. Did y'all think it was Whitney's bag? It looked like the same bag, so I don't know. So she's like, what is this? Like, Meredith asked Lisa, what do you think, with Bronwyn? Lisa says I think it was Lisa that said she showed up fully inflatable. Lisa said Meredith said she showed up fully inflatable. Lisa said, well, it's on brand. I wouldn't expect anything less. So Meredith says, we didn't say a word. We didn't ask her because Heather asked us not to. Do you think she'll bring it up on her own? Lisa said, an iteration of the truth. So Meredith says, I just want an honest answer, whatever it is. I just want an honest answer. And so Lisa says, well, I hope that we get her to be honest. Brittany asked Bronwyn, are you taking they're talking about the closets. Like, are you taking both of these closets? Child, Bronwyn is already irritated with Brittany. She's like, no, Brittany, I'm taking one closet. So Brittany, now this is why Brittany knows the game too. And again, I like her in a friend of position. She don't need to hold a snowflake. She says, where have you been? Why didn't you come with us? So Bronwyn said, well, I almost didn't come at all. So Brittany was like, well, why? Like, girl, why wouldn't you want to come with us? Bronwyn said, look, I'm not ready to say yet, but somebody in this group is definitely planning stories about me in the press. Brittany said, I heard about those stories. The way Brittany, I said, that's right, Brittany, make it. She said, I heard about those stories. Do you think it's somebody from the group? Bronwyn says, of course. So Brittany says, the whole grand theft thing, is it true? Bronwyn says, no. Brittany says, you didn't do whatever they're saying that you did. So Bronwyn said, it's changed at least 18 times. First, it was I stole a car. Then it's like I did a whole bunch of other things. It's disgusting and it's manipulative. It's trying to dig in my past and find something, you know, against me. She said, I'm not embarrassed about my past. I've made mistakes. So Brittany says, honestly, we were wondering if it was all true, because you could look it up. It's like public record. Brahma said it's not public record. There's very some specific shading going on that bothers me to hear you. And it bothers me to hear you guys have been talking about it behind my back because not one person called me and asked if I was okay other than Mary. Now, in the interest of being honest and trying to be fair, y'all know how I feel about Lisa. However, I have to ask, when that stuff came up in the Salt Lake City Tribune about Lisa, Bronwyn, did you call her or were y'all not speaking? If you weren't speaking, did you have one of the other girls that you are speaking to say, hey, call? Did you tell them maybe you should call her and check on her and just let me know how she's doing? And I know we're going through it. Did you text her and say, Lisa, I know we're going through a rough time. I saw what was in the paper. I just want to let you know I'm thinking about you. Did you do any of that? I'm just wondering. And you did talk about what was currently going on now, even though yours is the past, it's still out there. You talked about what was currently going on now with Lisa when she wasn't on the trip. Your intention might have been to bring it up. You didn't know she wasn't coming, so you were going to bring it up while she was there. However, she wasn't there and you still talked about it. So just saying, Bronwyn, both ways, honey, both ways. That's what I think. Y'all let me know. I feel like Bronwyn has been a little bit hypocritical in this particular moment. But y'all let me know what y'all think. So in her confessional, she talked about her eviction after she left to have her daughter. She got evicted from an apartment. She said all those things are from a long time ago and true. And then there's a case they're saying is current, but it's actually 10 plus years ago. She said the only thing they can find because it's sealed is a penal code, which I remember talking about it on this channel. So the case is attached to that penal code. And it under that penal code, there could be a list of things. Identity theft, grand theft auto, everything. But we don't know for sure. Bronwyn says it's embarrassing and it's incredibly difficult because of the stress that it puts on my family, mostly Todd. She said, so when I said this to Todd, he told me he didn't think I should fly halfway across the world to be with people who would do this to me. She said, Todd doesn't deal with laziness, lies, or rumors. He's a serious person. His company's serious. His business is serious. He works with serious people. We get it, child. Todd is serious. She said, if this is something that upset her and her daughter. So she had to hold space for them, make sure everything was good with them, figure things out with them before she could come on the show. Child, Brittany was, I mean, not on the show, on the trip. Brittany was like, interesting. Now, oh, okay, I get it. Interesting. One of the crew members, meanwhile, was telling the other crew, child, I found a cucumber in the bag and it was like this big. She said, I put it next to their bed because I didn't know if it was a midnight snack or I said, oh, girl. In Meredith's confessional, the producer asked her if she packed a giant cucumber. Meredith said, what? They get to Heather. Heather said, what kind of question is that? Bronwyn says, where would I even get a cucumber? I don't cook. So I think it was Whitney's. So Angie says, everyone's going to think it's me because there's cucumbers in a Greek salad. I said, now, Angie, there's cucumbers in a lot of salads. But okay, maybe. Oh, poor baby. We see Angie running to the bathroom. She's sick. So looks like they're getting ready to have lunch at the table. Angie comes up and brings up a little trash can. I love how Mary came up walking like she's just so comfortable with this group now, and it's good to see. You know, it doesn't seem like she's on the defensive as much. She still gets defensive, but it seems like her defenses are slowly coming down a little bit, and that she enjoys doing this. So, remember a couple seasons ago when Angie was like, "Come sit next to me, Mary." Mary's like, "I don't know you. Who are you?" And now they're like, and now they're sisters. They're sisters. What a time to be alive. So Heather does a cheers to Bron. Cheers. They cheers and all of that. And Whitney says to Bronwyn, "Is everything okay?" Bronwyn tells him it's just a lot of stuff going on, and she's tired of people trying to dig up her past and twisting things and saying things that aren't true. Todd felt like maybe she'd be better at home than with them. Meredith said, "I didn't look into specifics, but I saw things that went from a few years back to 20 years back." Heather said, "I saw stuff that was 2021, which is 4 years old." Brownman said, "That's not real." Meredith said, "I think it would be in your best interest to clear it up because it looks a lot worse than it is my guess." So Brownman said, "I got kicked out of BYU 20 years ago. When I left, I did not pay some months on my apartment. It took me some months to get my life together. There was a judgment, the eviction." Lisa said, "I mean, that's fair. You were 19. I like Mary said, "How did that even coming up in the press?" I don't know if Brahma didn't hear her. I don't know if she addressed it, but the scene was too long and they cut it. But I thought that was a good question. Well, how was this even coming up in the press? And then maybe Mary was just saying it just like a hypothetical, like, how is this even coming up in the press? Heather said, "The charges that are coming up now are 4 years old." Bronwyn says, "There's no charges against me that are 4 years old. There's news that people are trying to say because there was something that went on at my work. I cooperated with the authorities about it. They were not charges against me. And years later, all the charges against whomever went through." So Lisa's like, "But why?" What I'm gathering, Kempire said it when him and I did our episode last week. Maybe she testified on someone, cooperated in an investigation, and it was sealed, and maybe she can't speak on it because there are no charges against her. No charges have come out against her. So even that case under that penal code, she was involved in the case because maybe she testified. So there's that. So Bronwyn said, "I can't discuss the whole case, which is why people are speculating because nobody can get any information." Heather said, "Why would they file charges on record against you?" So for the third time, Bronwyn says, "There were no charges filed against her. There was no mugshot. There's no police record. There's nothing." Heather said, "Then why are you so upset?" And Lisa said, "Why would it matter?" Bronwyn said her heart felt like there's some nasty things that come out after she's hung, basically after I started hanging out with this group, i.e., after I started doing this show, nasty things about my past have come out. Her and Todd are both thinking somebody in the group is doing it. So Lisa said, "I don't think it's anybody here. No one here would do that. We've been hanging out for a long time now." And I said, "Now, Lisa, if we're going to be fair, again, you brought that man, Cameron, who is now deceased, to the show." And I remember to her son's Fresh Wolf event to speak about Mary. I remember Meredith doing a podcast at that time and laid everything out pretty much about Lisa doing that. Now, Lisa and Meredith weren't necessarily in the best place. However, we knew what it was. So you have done that, Lisa. That's what irritates me about Lisa. It's like nobody would do that. You have. Like maybe people can't prove that you've done it to the other ladies, but we saw you invite that man. I always go back to you had Jen Shah help you plan that event for your sons. You didn't invite her, told her after you let her help plan the party, you did, or the event, you didn't invite her, told her your sons made the list, and then you bring this man to talk about Mary, about some really dark things. But the cast doesn't do that. That's why I don't put it past Lisa for doing some of this. Do I think she did it? I mean, do I think there's a chance that she has nothing to do with any of this? Absolutely. I think there's a chance that she didn't. I also think there's a chance that she did, in my opinion. Anyway, so Whitney said, how are they getting detailed information? That has to be like dug up. Bronwyn says, I agree. It's weird stuff that keeps getting put out, like about her out there. Lisa said, I'm going to be super direct. I don't think it's weird that you dug up stuff on me. Here's the thing, nothing was dug up. And that's what makes me like, is Lisa purposely misunderstanding or she really just doesn't get it? Nothing was dug up on you. Someone took an active court case to the Salt Lake City Tribune and everybody saw it. That didn't have to be dug up. It's an active case. That's not old. It was out there. Once Bronwyn saw it out there, she looked into the stuff that was listed there. Like, so, them saying, well, how did stuff get out there? Y'all stuff isn't making it to the Salt Lake Tribune, but Lisa's did. Again, it could have been a reporter, someone at the courthouse that came across the case. Lisa's kind of, for lack of a better term, a celebrity in Salt Lake City, right? Because the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. So comes across somebody's desk, yes, or again, the reporter. You just don't know. So Lisa said, bringing up stuff to the group, like when I wasn't here, like to Brown. Now that was true, but Brittany mumbled 4 lawsuits. Lisa said, I felt like because I upset you, that was retaliation. Now, there is a part of me that wonders why Lisa immediately went to, I upset Bronwyn. So she's bringing out stuff about me that's already out there, which makes me think if your mind went to that, is it because you've done it before, i.e., Cameron and Mary? Remember, Lisa was upset with well, that's why she went off on like Lisa does the retaliation thing. All the stuff she said about Meredith was because she felt like Meredith had Mary's back and not hers. And then we get to the reunion, and supposedly she said her house was ugly or something like that, and that's why. So for Lisa to say, I thought you did it for retaliation, it's like, well, is that a genuine question, how you operate? Again, I keep bringing up at Amy's party, you told Brian when you would keep saying things, I'll create a website about you. The suit man with Angie wasn't real. You're just saying that. So anyway, Bronwyn said, that's what I'm worried about. That maybe I've upset someone and they're doing this. In her confessional, Heather says, pipe down, Lisa, you're revealing yourself. She's clearly saying, don't put too much together don't put two and two together in case anyone here puts two and two together. So Lisa tells Bronwyn, don't spin this on me because you've been targeted, because that's going to piss me off. So Mary said to Bronwyn, well, you know who you're talking about, so just say it. So Bronwyn's like, I don't. So Mary says, so you don't think it's Lisa? Bronwyn said, I don't know. So Lisa gets really upset. This is a trigger for her. Bronwyn said, it would really bother me if it was somebody in this group of friends. I don't think any of us should do that to each other. So Heather says, Bronwyn, who do you think it came from? I said, here we go. Bronwyn was basically confused, but was like, but after Amy's, like basically, I don't know. Even though we know she thinks it's Lisa, I don't know. But after the party at Amy, the socialite's house, everything intensified, and I had a lot of fights after the luncheon. But then I came to you. You and I cleared things up. I thought we were cool. Lisa said we did, and I didn't do anything to you. I don't know where this is coming from. So Lisa said it sounds like an accusation. Bronwyn said, well, let me finish. I would be devastated if I sat down and apologized to you and you kept it going. And it was. So Lisa said, who fed my stuff to the Salt Lake City Tribune? Okay, I'll say I'll save that. So she said, who's fed my stuff to the Salt Lake City Tribune? So and I'm just reading my notes. My notes keep saying the same thing. Again, it was out there. It was in the Salt Lake City Tribune. So Lisa wants to go swimming. She said, it's irritating and I'm hot. I didn't do it. In her confessional, Whitney said, no one even accused you. You're giving yourself away. Do y'all think Lisa was giving herself away with her actions? So they go get ready to get in the water. Lisa is with Heather and says, basically, that was fun. I think she thought Heather was going to be like, yeah, what's up with Bronwyn? What's this? Child. Heather just walked down the steps. I was like, mm. So the ladies start getting in the water. Angie says, wait a minute. I don't know, but they all start getting in the water. Child, they having a good time. What's her name? Brittany is on a swan floating away. Angie gets sick to the point where she is throwing up in the water. I felt so bad for Angie. Mary didn't get in the water. She sat in a chair and said, "Oh, this is luxurious." Mary not getting in the water didn't feel like she was separating herself this time. Remember a few seasons ago, it was like, okay, Mary, you came back. Now you're sitting in a van eating McDonald's. You're separating yourself from the ladies. This felt like I'm a part of the group, but child, I'm not swimming. I'm about to sit over here on this chair and enjoy this luxury, So I like that the group seems, for whatever issues they have, it's still a cohesive group. And I don't want anyone else to come in this group right now. I want it to be these ladies. So Heather and Brittany end up sitting in a chair together, and Brittany says something about Heather canoodling with Jason. Heather says, we're just friends. There's nothing there. We have a history. We've effed around before, but it's nothing there. Brittany said, what do you mean effed around? Heather said, we're friends. There's no latitude. Child, in her confessional, Heather says, did I say that? Seriously, I said that. She said, oh, you can't use that. I don't know why I said that to her. She said, delete it. I said, because you're drinking. One of the crew, oh yeah, we talked about Brittany being on this on the Swan, and she is flirting with one of the members named Joelle. I remember Joelle's season on Below Deck. I used to love Below Deck. So, of course, she's flirting or what have you. Child, they bringing Angie back to shore. She's laying down. Then she's holding on to the leg of somebody. They told her that might make her feel better. And I just felt so bad. So in her confessional, Angie said, this is the worst. I'm sick. And the worst part is I'm in a bikini and I can't even suck it in. In her confessional, Lisa says, I don't want to be around Angie while she's puking. She's so full of ish, she makes herself sick. Child. And then I said, Brittany, leave that man alone. Leave how you say it? Joelle alone. Whitney and Bronwyn are in Bronwyn and Brittany's room. Bronwyn shows Whitney the stuffed animal with Jared's voice in it. And Whitney says she promised she's on a 30-day fast from him. And that she's going to find one of the crew and get with him. I said, no, she shouldn't be finding anything and getting with no one. She should be done. She needs to be on a fast from all men. Next thing you know, we look up and Brittany is flirting with the crew member, telling him she buys real estate and sells it, right? Or something, or designs it and sells it. I buy, I sell, I sell, I buy. I said, is Brittany drunk? Anyway, Bronwyn and Whitney are talking about the lunch. Bronwyn said, I didn't even say it to you, and you're talking about Lisa's reaction. Whitney said, because it was her. Yeah, that's what it is. Bronwyn was telling Whitney, I didn't even say it was Lisa, and look at her reaction. And Whitney says, that's because it was her. Bronwyn said, who broke the Alibaba thing last year? It was Lisa. And I will say Meredith was getting a lot of the blame, but they showed a flashback of Lisa telling Meredith. That's where it came from. Lisa didn't bring it to the group, but she did tell Meredith. Remember that flashback? I'm 99% sure, but y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember that. So Bronwyn said, well, the person who's putting it on Twitter keeps using this nickname for me. Before they were tweeting the name, Lisa called me at Amy's party, Conwyn. She said, that stuff wasn't out in the press. That's red flag number one. They show a flashback. We don't hear Lisa say Conwyn. We hear her call Bronwyn Fraudwyn. But then the next day, a tweet comes out that says Conwyn. So she thinks because of that, it was Lisa. Because remember, again, there was Amy's party. Lisa called her Fraudwyn. The next day, now on Twitter, the stuff comes out and they're calling her Conwyn Fraudport. In her confessional, Whitney says Lisa's getting sloppy. She's not even trying to hide that she's doing it. It's not a coincidence that the same name was used. Again, to be fair, it's not exactly the same. They're along the same lines, but not exactly the same, you know. So Whitney said, we know what she does. She does it to everyone. Bronwyn said, if I think she could do this, if even if I think she could do this to me, even if I don't know for sure, but if I have that feeling, that's the end for me. So Whitney's like, we got to get ready for dinner. Lisa's in her cabin and she calls John. Whitney's back in her room with her and Heather. They're bringing up how every time Lisa's mad at someone, information gets leaked. Heather says, I agree. Whitney says, do you think Lisa leaked it? And Heather said, absolutely. My thing is, and we'll talk about it later, there is a switch with Heather. All of a sudden, Lisa is this leak that you need to get the truth from. You were on the truth crusade when you lied about a black eye. We've talked about this. I know we got to let things live in the past. The housewives make mistakes. Even, you know, on the show they mess up, but it's just, it is weird to me, this switch that's happening with Heather. And it makes me wonder if she read comments from last season and in between seasons saying that she was near Lisa's anal cavity and now she wants to come out of it and show that I'm so real, I'll say it to your face and still want to be your friend. Because, well, we'll get to it later. But yeah, I'm just like, Heather, where's this energy coming from all of a sudden? You've always thought it was Lisa, and then you had no problem still going after her to be her friend, right? So why all of a sudden? Anyway, so Whitney says, you think Lisa leaked it? Heather said, absolutely. Lisa is smarter and darker than any of us. I think that she looks up everything, keeps a scorecard, and she's pissed about Bronwyn, and her attitude and her BS. And she's made sure that anyone who's interested knows her history. In her confessional, Heather says this has been going on with Lisa and Bronwyn for a while since we were in New York, which we know that means the reunion about the jewelry. Heather said, and I've seen Lisa talking to other people and gathering information about Bronwyn. We see Lisa talking to the lady, Amy, saying, do you know Bronwyn at all? And she says, we lived in the Bay Area together. Lisa said, do people love Todd? Why are you asking about him? And Amy says, I think that's Amy says, is this where I take the fifth? And I will say, Lisa always says, I can't help it if people tell me things. I think people tell her things because she asks. And then they tell her with the jewelry. I believe Lisa called that jewelry. I don't believe the jeweler just called her on her own. So what we saw Lisa doing with Amy, I feel like that's what Lisa does. And that's how she gets the information. So Heather says, when Angie dropped that Lisa had given her names to dig up on Meredith, that's when she really became convinced. So it makes me wonder, did Angie go to Meredith and give names and for some reason, and those names weren't shown on the show? And if so, when Angie met with Meredith that time, and if so, for Meredith to still be playing it like she is she doing it to be smart? Like, I'm not going to let Lisa know that I know because I don't want more trouble, but I'm going to just keep it in the back of my mind and make sure she may think we're real cool, but really I'm kind of like hands off. You know what I mean? Because for Heather to say when Angie dropped names, unless Angie told Heather, hey, Lisa told me to look into this person, and this person about Meredith, but she didn't give Meredith names. Because I thought it was weird for Heather to say Angie dropped names when we didn't hear her drop names. We just heard her say somebody dealing with mental health issues and some other stuff. We didn't hear names though. So it makes me wonder. Anyway, so Heather said it sealed the deal for her, and it's undeniable. She said heads or tails, she thinks all the leaks come from Lisa. So Whitney says, what do we do? Heather said we should get Meredith in here. Meredith comes in. They bring up everything to her, and she's like, well, you know, coincidences. Basically, the coincidences are coinciding, but we don't know for sure. It could all be truly a coincidence. Let's bring it up to her. We need to talk to her. In her confessional, Meredith says they're worried about who planted the stories about Bronwyn, but they don't care if Bronwyn did this stuff. She said if Lisa really did do this, it would be horrible, but there's no proof, and correlation does not equal causation. I said, all right, Miss Lawyer. Poor Angie's in her room, so sick. She can't even go to the dinner, but Mary ends up staying with her. Daisy knocks on the door and asks, are they okay? Mary said, no, we need a captain. She said, okay, cool, I'll get the captain. She also gets Mary's food order straight. All the other ladies are getting ready for dinner, and Heather's like, come on, we're behind. Whitney said, it's hard to do your makeup on a rocking boat after you've been drinking. So Captain Jason comes in to see Angie asked her if she's feeling better, and he's putting like ice packs around her, and he says that'll help. And she says, what she say? This is worth it. All this love and care from Captain Jason. He's icing me, Mary by my side. Side note, I heard this from a woman whose grandfather used, and I think I told you guys this before. A woman had a grandfather who used to be on like little fishing boats. When you get nauseous, and I have tried the method and it works, in your house, even if you don't normally eat them, keep salt and vinegar chips and a regular Coke. When you get nauseous, eat on some of those chips and drink that Coke, and baby, within about 20 minutes or so, that nauseousness will be gone. Whether it's and the lady that I heard talk about it, one lady said her grandfather told her that, and she had told her friend, and her friend said, "Yeah, it worked for me during her prenatal. What is it? When you're pregnant, her morning sickness. It worked for her." And the other girl was like, "It's worked for me on drunken nights. It has worked for Corey, like immediately. Like I've done that a few times with Corey, and it has worked for him." So y'all keep on hand maybe the little trial size bag of the salt and vinegar chips and a Coke. And Corey, I've never had to use it, but Corey's it I literally watched it work before my eyes. So just a little, it made me think about this because to me there's nothing worse than feeling nauseous. When you feel nauseous, it's like, oh my gosh. So anyway, all the ladies except Angie and Mary get to the dinner. Heather is telling them Angie's not coming. They say she got to get her sea legs. Lisa said she can't get out of bed, and Heather's like she's very, very sick. So Lisa said, "Oh, that's sad." And that's what I mean. They clearly are going back and forth, but the girls can still come together, you know? So they show a flashback of Heather in there talking to Angie and Mary. And Angie had to go run in the bathroom and throw up right then. So then they show the bathroom, and you hear Mary saying something like, "Okay, I'm all ready to go," or "I'm all feeling good," or something. And she sees her food on her bed and says, "Where's the rest of the food?" Like, who? Oh, mind you, when Mary was talking to herself, Angie's like, "I'm glad you talked to yourself so you won't be lonely." So Mary said, "Is this the food? Where's the rest of it?" So the ladies have all started, I guess this is on their first course or what have you. Heather said, "I'm sad because we're missing Angie and Mary's commentary." Brittany said, "I do not miss Mary's commentary." I said, "Oh, when Mary hears that." Heather said, "We have a rule. You can only talk about them in front of you." Child, I said, if this wasn't an alley oop, passed the ball, Heather threw the ball up, and Bronwyn came in and put it down, baby. Brittany says, "I'm the only one that says what she feels to people's faces." The way Bronwyn said, "Oh no, ma'am, hold my soup. Let me get into this." Bronwyn said, "What about the things that are not being said to people's faces you're mad at?" And then they show a flashback to Bronwyn and Brittany, of all people. Bronwyn looked like she didn't want to be in the scene. It looks like they were out somewhere shopping, probably for the trip. And Brittany's telling Bronwyn she feels like Lisa is trying to big sister her. She don't need that. She can fight her own battles. So then Bronwyn says, "Well, what's going on with you and Meredith?" And Brittany says, "I have yet to see Meredith, like basically Meredith be having these seizures." Y'all, when I tell y'all I screamed out loud, I was like, did she just say what I think she said? Meredith be having seizures. I said, "Brittany." She said, "I don't know why Meredith goes from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds. It's almost like it's not even real." So Bronwyn said, "Well, I feel like Meredith has been super supportive of you." And I said, "Now, Bronwyn, I feel like Bronwyn was egging her on because we know Meredith is not super supportive of Brittany." So Brittany says, "No, child." So now we're back at the table. Bronwyn blows it up and tells Lisa, "She said that you big sister her, you're in her business. She doesn't want your advice, and it's the issue." And then she said to Meredith, "And she said you pretend to have seizures, you slur your words. She said you go from 0 to 100 because she thinks it's an act and doesn't believe anything that comes out of your mouth." Meredith said, "Pretend to have seizures." Oh, I've never had a seizure in my life, but that's a horrible thing to say about somebody. There are people who have seizures and they are very serious. One of them, which is my child, I find this despicable. Brittany goes to bring up her child. Meredith screams, I don't care. Brittany said, see, this is what I'm talking about. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is a seizure. Sorry. This is the seizure that I'm talking about. The way Meredith stood up with that glass of water. And in the words of my good girlfriend Zell, Zell's been on the podcast. She'll be back. She's from Who Asked Me podcast. Make sure y'all check her out. Who Asked Me podcast. She's on YouTube as well and does blogs, vlogs, talks about mental health, all the shows, and really good. Zell said Meredith threw Meredith threw the slowest water toss in history. The way Meredith stood up and tossed that water in slow motion, and then the way Brittany threw it back, and Brahman was like, "Oh no, oh no, oh no!" I was crying. I could not believe I was watching it. I kept rewind. I was laughing so hard because I watched it live. Then I went back and watched it on Peacock to take notes. Y'all, when I tell you, I could barely take notes because I was cracking up. Mm-mm-mm. In her confessional, Heather said, Meredith, turn up your hearing aid. It did, Brittany didn't say Jared, because remember, anytime Brittany said Jared, they were going to throw water on her. Y'all, I couldn't believe this. I said, and then I said, y'all, this is night one. This is night one. In her confessional, Brittany says, I'm sick of Meredith treating me like ish, and no one's even batting an eye. I said, girl, they don't care. They don't. Meredith, Brittany says Meredith has had some seizures. Oh no, I'm sorry. Wait. They talk about seizures again. I forget. And, oh, Meredith says I don't think it's funny. Oh, that's okay. Because they had went to commercial. So I think it's disgraceful, disgusting. Brittany says, again, this is what I'm talking about. Brittany said, I think she dislikes me so much because I'm the only one that's not afraid to go toe to toe with her. I said, girl, Whitney's sitting right next to you. Never had a problem. Like that one is not it. I can't rock with you on that one, Brittany. I think she dislikes you because for the same reason a lot of the other women kind of like just tolerate you, right? So even Mary's went back and forth with her. So Brittany says, well, you didn't stick up. Wait a minute. Oh, so Brittany says, well, you didn't stick up. I think she's telling Bronwyn, because I kind of missed this. Was Brittany telling Bronwyn, well, you didn't stick up for her? And Bronwyn says, I told her she shouldn't say that and that she should say it to Meredith. That's what I got. I watched it so much, but I still didn't. I should have focused more on that. I didn't, but I think that's what was happening. Anyway, Brittany tells Meredith she goes from 0 to 100 in point 0.2 seconds. How is it that you're nice to me 1 minute and then the next minute you're freaking out? Child, we're back with Mary and Angie. Mary is eating it and it's crunching. Angie says, sounds crunchy. Mary said, I've been blessed. Angie says, you are blessed, eating in peace. Mary said, I hope they appreciate that food out there. Of course, we're back outside and they're screaming. Meredith says, you lie incessantly. You've recorded us. You've done a lot of really nasty things. Brittany tells her, why don't you just disengage? My God. Wait, then Meredith says, I'll be happy. I'll be more than happy to disengage forever. Bye. Oh, wait, I'll be wait. Brittany, I can barely get it out. Y'all. I'm seeing it in my head. Brittany says, why don't you just disengage? Meredith says, I'll be more than happy to disengage forever, sweetheart. Bye. I love them. Heather said, everybody at the table has things we all need to own and move on. I said, here we go. Text message gate part two. Remember they was reading them text messages? Y'all, I'm gonna have to go back and watch that. Oh my God, one of the greatest scenes. Anyway, so Heather says, this is not a pile on. We're adult women. We're living our best effing life. I said, now, how she's trying, because we know what Heather's setting this up to do, to blame Lisa for the Bronwyn link. But to be like, we're adult women, we're living our best effing life. You trying to bridge those two subjects. Like, I said, how much has my notes say, how much to drink has Heather had? Now, I worded that wrong. Like, I have been drinking. I hadn't. But how much had she been drinking? Child, Meredith said, wait, I think Meredith said, I said what I said, or something like that. Child, they showed Brittany. Brittany looked like she had been through war. I ain't gonna say no more. Go back and look at Brittany. She looked like she had been through it. Matter of fact, it's gonna be in my the picture of her gonna be in my thumbnail. Heather says, what else do we need to do? What else do we need to own at this table? Whitney says, I think you need to own something, you and Meredith. Heather says, well, I said they set this up. That's the way they introduced, because it didn't even make sense. It's not even like, well, we know this is how they introduce Lisa being a leak, right? So Whitney says the little conversation we had in our bed earlier. And I said, now her saying that Meredith needs to own, that was kind of like a little sketch, because they brought Meredith in and Meredith really defended Lisa. I feel like, y'all let me know what y'all think. I don't think Meredith had anything to really own. Of course, Lisa's going to want to know, did you defend me? But outside of that, I don't see, right? So Meredith says, yes, you guys should talk about it. Whitney said, you were a part of it. Meredith said, I was a part of it. In the confessional, Heather said, I feel disappointed by Meredith. I was trying to make grounds with Lisa, and I thought it would go over a lot better if Meredith was with me. This is where Heather, now I have said, if y'all have listened to my content covering Salt Lake City from the beginning, I didn't care for Heather at all. And this is one of the things. Don't sit up here and act naive. Did you really think Meredith was going to go along with you calling out Lisa being a leak? If we're going to be who said it? If we're going to be anything, be for real. There was no way on God's green blue waters out there on that yacht that you thought that Meredith was going to go along with that. You couldn't have. And that's when it's like, stop playing dumb. Like, stop trying to play in my face. I would rather her just say, Lisa, I've observed this, and this. And as being your friend, I've heard you or watched you say this, and this. And this is why I think you're the lead. But don't try to play in our face. Don't do that, because we're not stupid. So Heather said, I don't care about anyone outside of the people I see at this table, the people at this table. And I just want to be real with you. She looks at Lisa. I'm just going to be honest with that. I think you're the source of all the dirt. Child, the way all their mouths dropped open, the way Lisa's mouth dropped open like a trout and she got the blinking. Lisa said, why are you guys always questioning me? Whitney said, because you always know the information. Meredith tells Lisa, that they talked about it. And Lisa said, I hope you had my back. Meredith said, I hope it's not true. Child, Lisa starts saying, no, no, no. Heather says, no one has your back on this. Lisa said, Meredith, I hope you had my back. And she's like, it's not true. Meredith said, well, that's all I need. You saying it's not true? It's all I need. Lisa said, I'm not the source of anything. People tell me stuff and all of a sudden I'm responsible. Again, I go back to, I think people tell her stuff because she asked. I don't think all of them. Sometimes they get it, right? Because I've told y'all before, I've had housewives come into my DMs wanting to spill, da 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 da, wanting to call you on the phone and give you info, right? So I do believe that people in her town or whatever probably tell her things, but I do also think she digs. Her asking that girl Amy some people about Bronwyn and Todd. Some people could consider that digging. She might not, because in her mind, oh, I'm not, with a magnifying glass out there digging up stuff. I'm just asking questions. But I do believe that Lisa be out there digging in that form, asking questions, trying to get information. Like I said, I believe she called that jeweler. So Whitney said, you know everything. Meredith said, they think you're the one who has fed everything to the blogs. Heather said, you are the grand poobah. I said, now, Heather, Lisa said, I'm the mother effing dawn of Salt Lake City. Ooh, child. In her confessional, Lisa says, I've never dug up dirt on any of them, and she's sick of being accused of it. People, and then she tells the ladies, people tell me stuff. I'm at Harmon's. I guess, I don't know if that's a restaurant or a store. She said, and I hear stuff. I got a Diet Coke and I hear it. So we're back in Angie and Mary's room. So Mary says, did you hear what she said? Angie said, no. She said, Lisa is crying and screaming and saying, I can't take this anymore. So back at the table, she's saying, you guys should, oh no, I'm sorry. Back at the table, Lisa is screaming, I can't take this anymore. You guys shut the F up about me. I didn't do anything to you. Whitney got up. This is what I like. Lisa got up. Whitney got up to walk towards Lisa. Lisa pointed at her, don't you come near me. Whitney points back, I'm coming near you. I want this piece, this scene to be the piece that NYU theater department uses, the School of Tish, when they let people in. Mm-mm-mm. So she says, don't come over here. She says, I'm coming over there. Lisa said, sit your little butt back down. Whitney says, I'm coming, Lisa. So we're back with Mary and Angie. Mary says, I feel like I hear Whitney and Lisa. And she was spot on. So Lisa gets up and walks over to Heather and grabs her face and says, you guys have no one to beat up if I wasn't here. I said, this is cinema, y'all. She's grabbing her face. The dichotomy of her looking like she's softly touching Heather's face to be like, you guys have no one else to beat up if I'm not here. Lisa is telling Heather, you know everything. And that makes me wonder. Like I said before, Heather, where's all this energy coming from with Lisa? I feel like Heather knows some stuff too that Lisa shared with her, which is why she can say, I feel like Lisa's the leak, but she's not saying that because you went along with it, right? Because when she said, Heather, you know stuff too, I'm like, or you know everything, I'm like, because I didn't take that to mean her saying, like, you got your degree and you know every effing thing. I think she meant it like, you know what I know. I don't know. So Whitney decides she's gonna come around the backside and still approach Heather. Lisa says, go sit down and flings her hand. Whitney said, you go sit down. I want to reenact this so bad. So she flings her hand, tells her to sit down. In the meantime, Heather's like, are you effing kidding me? Can we just sit down and talk? Child, the crew comes up. Wait. Oh, the crew brings Mary cheesecake to Angie and Mary's room. Mary tells them they are buck wild up there. And he goes, is it too loud? Mary says, no, no, we're fine. We're fine. In the meantime, Lisa is screaming at Heather. I think Lisa's screaming F you because Heather's saying F me. Inside the crew, they're like, oh my God, they're killing each other out there. So Lisa says to them, I've been called a cheater. I've been called Jen Shah. What else are you going to call me? Pause. This is what makes me not feel for Lisa or not feel bad for Lisa. She says, I've been called a cheater. I've been called Jen Shah. I said, am I mistaken? Or did Lisa call Meredith a cheater or actually a whore that F's half of New York? And did she not tweet that Bronwyn was worse than Jen Shah? So I don't feel for you. Like you get what you did, what you put out. You talked about Meredith being a cheater and a whore, F and half of New York. You said that Bronwyn was worse than Jen Shah, so now you're kind of getting it back. I'm just saying. Anyway, she said, this is why I don't talk to any of you. She said, I'm sick of you. Heather said, I've been a very good friend to you. Lisa is telling Meredith, if you didn't defend me, oh my gosh. Now, it could be, y'all tell me if this is different, because I don't want to be piling on or like justifying everything because I don't care for Lisa, because I can see her points in some things, right? But she says to Meredith, you better have stuck up for me or it's going to be an issue. Her and Meredith are rebuilding their friendship. Her and Bronwyn came on as good friends last season. That's the way it came on. Lisa was like, I wanted to be friends with her, blah, 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 blah. When Bronwyn wanted you to defend her to Heather, you say to her, I'm not responsible for anybody but myself. So should Meredith have felt the same way? Or do y'all think it's different because they, Meredith and Lisa, have found their way back to each other? Y'all let me know. So Lisa said, Meredith, you better say I'm sorry right effing now because I've defended you. Heather says to Meredith, don't be afraid of her. She's trying to throw her weight around. I said, is this the mafia? Like, what is? Child, they screaming back and forth. Here comes Captain Jason and Joelle with the food. As they're trying to give the food, Heather said, you're the source of the dirt. Lisa said, I'm not the source of any dirt. Don't you ever put that on me again. So Joelle and Captain Jason leave the food. They walk out. And Captain Jason says, I was going to eat with them tonight, but not. Child, Lisa is screaming and clapping, screaming and clapping. I'm not going to admit to something I didn't do. Heather calls her a defensive bitch. I said, now I'm really looking at Heather because calling her out her name, like this is a 180 from where you've been with Lisa these past couple of seasons. And now all of a sudden you calling her out her name. Again, while I'm glad somebody is on Lisa's neck, I just don't know how I feel about Heather being the one. Cause you was on her neck, but not on her neck when she called you a good time girl when you said that wasn't true. But now you on her neck and you don't even like Bronwyn for real. So it's confusing because you don't really like Bronwyn like that, Heather. So let me see. Like I said, I think she might have been reading the viewers' comments from seasons before. Heather said, you know, all of the dirt, say it to her face right effing now. Heather said, I'll say it. Grand larceny, identity theft, all of it. Child Brown was just sitting there. Lisa said, it's all over the internet. Heather said, well, say it to her. That to me is like, why do I have to say that I've been talking about it? You know, we've been talking about it because it's on the internet. So what would this prove? And I feel like Heather got in her head when Bronwyn brought up Lisa's stuff at the campsite, and Heather did say something about saying it to her face. I think Heather thought she had to give that same energy to Lisa, so the audience didn't say, "Look at Heather being hypocritical," or "Look at Heather just taking Lisa's side." I really do think so, because that to me, say it to her face. She knows y'all been talking about it. Like it doesn't make any sense. So Captain Jason comes back to check on Angie and Mary. They're all good. So they're back at the table. Heather said, I'm just going to be honest with you. Again, I think you're the source of the dirt. Lisa says, okay, then I can't be your friend. Heather says, are you effing kidding me? I said, Heather, are you surprised? If my friend was sitting in my face, I mean, that would be hard. Like, you really think this? And you saying it all like this, calling me out my name, like all of this? So Lisa said, I got accused of leaking stuff last year that I didn't leak, and I actually defended you and felt bad talking to Whitney. Heather said, what if you're the leak? Oh, no. So Lisa's like trying to prove a point. She's like, how do you know I'm the leak? What if you're the leak? What if you're the leak? What if you're the leak? Like she goes around the table. She said, it's not me. Heather said, if it was me, I would own it. Lisa said, I love how this got spun. Heather said, you're effing spinning it, you moron. Again, like that. And I just was kind of like, because as much as I don't care for Lisa, I still was kind of like, you kind of doing a lot, Heather. Out of nowhere, it seems like. Lisa said, I did not do what you accused me of doing, and I just don't have anything more to say. Lisa said, I literally can't believe you would say that to me. Heather said, have I ever disparaged your marriage? Have I ever disparaged your business? Have I ever did effing anything to you? I'm going to say what I think, and I'm going to say it to your face. Child, then Heather going to say, get off the effing yacht if you can't hear what I have to say. I said, come on, big balls. Where you get them balls from? Because you ain't had them before, Heather. The Chef Ben comes up to try to talk to them. They screaming, they hollering. Lisa gets up and says, I'm leaving. I'll never be accused of something I didn't do. Meredith goes up to comfort her. And then Lisa circles back around to Heather and says, I don't need to be calmed down. Because what do you mean? Do you really want me to go? I didn't do what you accused me of doing. So Heather says, of course I don't want you to go. All this is screaming. She said, how would you feel if I did that to you, child? Chef Ben leaves. He said, no, this is too much. So Lisa said, Heather, you being a friend to me is not telling me to admit to something I didn't do. That's that's being like everybody else and what everybody else has done to me. And she points to Whitney. Whitney says, "You've done things to me." Lisa grabbed her shoulders. Said, "I haven't done anything to you." These ladies are physical. Like Nene said, you better watch them B words. You better watch them hands because these ladies are physical. So as when Lisa does that, Heather's like, "Don't touch." So Heather is crying and says, "You guys are liars and fake. And the fact that you're the one that knows everything." Heather said, "Why is it bad?" You're asking Lisa, "Why is it bad?" Girl, see again. I'm not gonna get worked up. Heather, you playing in our face. Lisa walks away and walks downstairs and goes to the edge of the dock. And I'm assuming she calls John. Because did she say I'm calling John? Or did she just make a call? I'm gonna tell you why I asked that later. Heather goes in crying to Angie and Mary. Heather tells them I tried to confront Lisa and she's so mad at me. So they plan how she's gonna end up going to talk to Lisa. Heather said, "I mean, I'm her friend over Bronwyn, but this, like we said, you don't even like Bronwyn." They tell her she's being a real friend. Mary says the captain was paying attention and said Heather's getting at Lisa, so they kind of laugh. In the meantime, Whitney is asking Captain Jason, "Can I sneak down to the kitchen?" I said, "Girl, what?" And Bronwyn and Meredith are just at the table. I don't know where Brittany is. With Brittany probably with one of the crew. So Whitney goes to the kitchen. I wonder if they hate when the guests do that, when it's chaotic. Like, do they hate them coming down there? Captain Jason comes outside and asks Brittany, "Oh, okay, that's where Brittany is. Did you have a good night?" She says, "Yeah, let me ask you a question. Do you really run the ship?" He said, "Yeah." She said, "Can you give me a tour?" He said, "Yeah, but not now." She said, "Why now? Why not now?" He said, "Tomorrow." So Meredith and Bronwyn are at the table watching and laughing. Brittany then walks up to Joelle, another deck crew member, and well, she's trying to find. Later on, she said she was trying to find Heather, but she was walking, and I guess she sees Lisa, and so she walks down there to Lisa. Y'all, the way this didn't look real because that water was so beautiful and blue, and those fish swimming around, and Lisa sitting so far out on that deck. There's no way on earth that I would have. Listen, I do water to look cute. Get in with a bathing suit, my jewelry, my lip gloss. I may even go underwater. Brrr, brrr. I literally just learned how to float a couple years ago, just to trust the water and let the body move it. Ain't no way I could have did what Heather did because I'd be too scared that I would fall over. I mean, that I would be able to do what Lisa did, just sitting out there like that, sitting at the dock of the bay at night. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. So Lisa's out there on the phone, and she says, "If I'm go to the hotel, will you pick me up?" Which makes me wonder, was she talking to John? Because did John come too and just is staying at a hotel around there somewhere? That's what made me think, was she talking to John or was she talking to like a producer or something to be like, "Come, can you, if I go to the hotel, can you come get me?" Because I don't know. But anyway, so Brittany wants to hug Lisa, and Lisa's like, "No, I don't want anyone near me." And she goes, "Can I just hug you?" So Lisa reaches her arm up. Just no, get away from me. I don't want anyone near me right now. Please leave me alone. I don't want anyone touching me. Brittany's like, "Okay." Back in the room, Heather asks Mary, "What do I say to her?" Mary says, "Tell her I'm really trying to be a good friend. I'm telling you how I feel." Mary says, "We all feel it. We all know it." Heather says, "I'm going right now. I'm going to carry it all for us." So she walks out of the room and says, "Does anyone know where Lisa is?" Brittany says, "I do. I was just actually looking for you and found Lisa." Heather says, "I want to go talk to her." Child, as Whitney is now touring the cruise cabin, she said, "Do you sleep in the kitchen?" to Chef Ben. So Heather and Brittany look over and see Lisa sitting on the deck, and she's crying and, "How could they do this to me? How could they do this to me?" And it goes off for next week. That was television. Y'all let me know what y'all think. I truly love this show. Even the ones that I don't necessarily care for, I want them here because they work together. This group is so good. But y'all let me know what y'all think. Do y'all think it was a pylon? Do y'all think that it was Lisa? I can't say it was, and I can't say it wasn't. I honestly don't know. Do y'all think? It's a coincidence. Is it a coincidence? I ask you. Y'all let me know. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. For those of y'all watching the video, please make sure you go on over to wherever it is you listen to your podcast, type in what else is going on. Follow me there. For those of y'all listening to the podcast, please, I beg of you, not really, not beg, but I ask of you, please come on over to YouTube, type in We Go Podcast for what else is going on podcast, and hit the subscribe button. If you have any hypes left for the week, if this video has a hype button on it, if you want to hype it, I would appreciate that too. I love y'all. Thank y'all so much for y'all support. I want to do another video today. I want to do Bell Collective, but y'all, when I tell y'all, I'm so tired, but I'm going to see what I can do. I love y'all so much. See ya.